Today, this is a message of love. We're going to talk a little bit about using what you've been given wisely, being a good steward. In biblical times, the master of a house would have stewards. These stewards were like managers who were responsible for taking care of the affairs of the master. When he would go away, he would entrust to them his possessions, put it in their care. And hopefully, if they were wise, good and faithful stewards, they would increase. They would grow the master's property. They would grow his interests. All of us have been given gifts. All of us have been entrusted with gifts and talents from the master. Jesus tells a parable about a master who went away for a long time. And when he came back, he asked for an accounting from his stewards of what they had did with the possessions he had entrusted them with. One of them, a couple of them doubled what they were given. And God tells them to go join in. The master of the house tells them to go join in to his joy. And he even gives them more possessions. But in contrast to the ones who had increased, there was one servant or one steward who had taken what the master had given him and buried it in the ground. He said that the master was mean and stern and liked to reap where he didn't sow. So he wanted to make sure he had what the master gave him when the master came back. So he buried it in the ground. And then the master tells him, when he relates this, he says, so I'm mean and stern and I like to reap where I didn't sow? Then you should have took what I gave you and put it in the bank so I'd have some interest when I came back. So he ordered that servant, that steward, be bound up and thrown into the darkness, and what he has, the talent that he had buried, to take it away from him and give it to the one who had doubled his. Scripture tells us that. What do you have that you were not given? Everything we have been given from the Father. Every good and perfect gift comes from the Father. So it's important to pay attention to how we're using it. Are we using it to better ourselves? Are we using it to further the master's interests? Are we using it to build up our fellow man? Are we using it to make a better world? Or are we burying? Some people might say, I was only given one. If I had been given 10 like the other guy, I could have did something with it. But Jesus tells us that he who is faithful in that which is least will be faithful in that which is most. And he that is not faithful in that which is least will never be faithful in that which is most. So it's not the quantity of what you have. It's how you use what you have. It's how you view what you have. Scripture tells us that all of us have been given the measure of faith. Do you use your faith to increase your faith? To stretch out when hard times come on the principle that you know God is He has your back and He's going to cover you? And as you begin to rely and trust in Him more, your faith increases and you grow your faith? Or do you bury your faith behind fear and doubt? It's interesting in this parable that Jesus tells us that the one who didn't use what he had been given, it was taken away from him. To whom much is given, much will be asked. But the one who doesn't have even what he had will be taken from him. It's important to use what you have. Some people might say, I don't really have nothing. But you have a smile. You have a beautiful smile that you can use to light up the room and make others smile. Or do you bury your smile behind a frown? It's important to use what we've been given wisely. It's important to use what we've been given to glorify the Father, to increase the kingdom, to lift our fellow man, to make the world a better place. Be a good steward. Use your gifts wisely.